The howl beneath the cold moon, the night was still. Snow fell like soft feathers over the silent forest, covering every tree, every rock, every forgotten trail. Under the pale light of the moon, a white wolf walked alone. His fur shimmered like ice, his eyes cold but tired. He had been wandering for days, chasing nothing but the echo of his own hunger. The white wolf had once belonged to a great pack. They ruled the northern slopes where the air was thin and the rivers froze into mirrors. But winter had grown cruel. Prey disappeared, and his pack fell apart one by one until only he remained. He had no name now, no purpose, just survival. Every step was heavy. Every breath left a small cloud behind, fading too quickly, like the memory of those he had lost. One night, while crossing a frozen lake, he heard something that didn't belong in the north. It was deep, low, and strange. A roar. Not the voice of any creature from this land. He stopped, ears up, body still as stone. The sound came again, closer, louder. It was filled with pain. The white wolf followed it. His paws sank into the snow, his breath sharp. Through the mist and ice, he saw a figure struggling near the edge of the forest. At first, he thought it was a bear. But as he crept closer, he saw something darker, larger. A creature of the south. A lion. The wolf froze. He had never seen such an animal. The lion's black mane was covered in frost, his golden eyes dim with exhaustion. His body trembled as he tried to rise but failed. Beside him lay broken wooden pieces, remnants of a cage dragged by humans. The wolf stayed back. The lion's smell was strange, heavy with dust and fear. They stared at each other for a long time, two kings from different worlds, both wounded by the same enemy, survival. For a moment, nothing moved. The forest listened. The wind whispered between them. Then the wolf took one step forward. The lion growled softly, but it was weak, almost like a plea. The wolf circled him once, sniffing cautiously. He saw the lion's back leg bleeding. A metal chain was still tied around it, biting into his flesh. The wolf didn't understand metal or cages, but he recognized pain. That night, under the frozen moon, he stayed near the lion, not close enough to touch, but close enough that the sound of his breathing could be heard. In the silence of the wild, that was the first act of trust. When morning came, the light turned the snow into silver fire. The wolf woke first, hungry and restless. He looked at the lion, still alive, still breathing heavily. There was something in the lion's eyes that reminded him of his old pack leader, pride, even in pain. He couldn't leave. Not yet. The wolf ran into the woods. He chased the scent of rabbits through the frost, fought against the cold wind, and finally caught one. It was small, barely enough for one. But he dragged it back anyway. The lion opened his eyes weakly as the wolf dropped the rabbit before him. It wasn't much, but it was everything the wolf could offer. The lion didn't eat at first. He just stared, confused. Then slowly, painfully, he began to chew. His golden eyes lifted for a moment and met the wolf's pale ones. A silent thank you passed between them. Two hunters, two survivors, from two different worlds. As days passed, the white wolf hunted and the black lion healed. He limped at first, dragging the heavy chain that clinked against the rocks. The wolf tried to bite it once, but his teeth couldn't break the metal. Still, he stayed. He brought food. He watched the lion regain strength. Soon, the lion could walk again. He stood tall against the morning light, his mane shaking off the frost. He looked magnificent and out of place, like fire trapped in snow. When the wolf approached, the lion didn't growl anymore. He lowered his head, a gesture of peace. And then, for the first time, they walked side by side through the forest. The white wolf led him to a hidden cave behind a frozen waterfall. It became their home. The sound of dripping ice echoed through the stone walls, and the two creatures, predators by nature, found warmth in each other's silent company. But the forest had eyes. Far below, near the edge of the valley, a group of hunters had returned to find the broken cage. They followed the lion's tracks, guns ready, dogs barking. They wanted their prize back, the black lion they had captured from the savannah. He was meant for a private zoo, a showpiece for power. As night fell again, the wolf sensed danger. His ears twitched, his nose lifted to the wind. The lion noticed too. Old instincts returned, the instinct to fight, to protect. The hunters were close. The wolf led the lion up the narrow mountain path, guiding him through shadows. The sound of dogs grew louder behind them. Bullets cracked through the air, hitting trees, shattering ice. The lion roared, shaking the valley. It was a sound that made even the wind pause. The wolf darted ahead, fast and silent, leading the way through the maze of snow and stone. The lion followed, limping but determined. For the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting alone. They reached a cliff overlooking the deep valley below. The hunters' lights danced behind them, getting closer. The wolf looked down. It was a long fall, but there was a frozen river beneath. He turned to the lion, their eyes meeting once more. No words were needed. They jumped together. The fall was hard, but the ice broke under their weight, saving them. The river carried them far from the hunters, through the night, through the cold, until they reached a silent grove where the forest turned softer and the snow thinner. They lay there, breathing heavily, side by side, under the glow of dawn. The wolf's fur was soaked, the lion's mane heavy with ice. But they were alive. The lion turned his head slightly toward the wolf and let out a low, rumbling sound. Not a roar this time, but something deeper, like gratitude. The wolf answered with a soft howl that rose into the brightening sky. And in that sound, something new was born. Not a pack, not a pride, but something between them, a promise. The white wolf and the black lion had met under the cold moon, and the world would never forget it. They didn't know where the river would take them next, but for the first time, neither of them felt alone. The journey had only begun. The Valley of Echoes. The sun rose gently over the white horizon, touching the forest with a faint golden glow. Frost melted from the trees, and the once frozen river whispered softly as it began to flow again. The white wolf opened his eyes first. His body ached from the fall, but he was alive. Beside him, the black lion lay still, breathing slowly, his mane tangled with ice and leaves. For a moment, the wolf just watched him. He had never stayed beside another creature for this long, not even his old pack. Yet something about the lion's presence felt familiar, almost like a heartbeat he had lost long ago. The wolf rose carefully and shook the snow off his fur. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but his eyes stayed on the lion. He knew that if he left, even for a while, the lion might not survive another cold night. As the morning light deepened, the lion stirred. His eyes opened slowly, golden and calm. He tried to stand but winced when his leg pressed against the ground. The metal chain still clung to him, half buried in mud, a cruel memory of where he had come from. The wolf stepped closer and sniffed the wound. He then began to dig at the chain with his teeth, pulling and biting again and again until his gums bled. The lion watched silently, a strange light in his eyes. After hours of effort, the chain finally snapped against a rock. The sound echoed through the valley like a bell of freedom. The lion lifted his paw slowly, stretching it for the first time without pain. He let out a deep breath and turned toward the wolf. He didn't speak. Animals didn't need words, but his eyes said what his voice could not. "Thank you." That day, they began to move south together, following the river that shimmered like glass. Snow turned to damp moss, and the wind carried scents of pine and earth instead of frost. The world around them began to change. Trees grew thicker, Birds returned to the sky, and distant valleys hummed with life. It was a new land, one neither of them had ever seen. As days passed, their bond grew. The wolf hunted smaller prey, hares and foxes, while the lion learned to fish in the shallows of the river, using his great paws to strike with surprising patience. At night, they rested near fireflies that lit the forest like tiny stars. Sometimes, when the lion slept, the wolf would stare at him and wonder what fate had joined them, a creature of ice and a creature of sun. It didn't make sense, but it felt right. One evening, as the sky turned purple, the lion spoke softly, not in words, but in a deep rumble that felt almost like speech. The wolf tilted his head, listening, and though no human could have understood, the meaning was clear. "I once ruled a savanna," the lion seemed to say. "I was proud, too proud. I trusted men who smiled, and they trapped me. Now I am here, free, but far from home." The wolf lowered his head, understanding more than he expected. He too had trusted once, his pack, his world, the promise that unity would keep them safe. But hunger had broken that bond, and now only he remained. Both of them were kings without kingdoms. They moved together through the deep forest, silent and alert. Yet not everything in this land welcomed them. One night they crossed into a hunting territory ruled by a massive brown bear. When the bear appeared, its growl thundered through the valley like an earthquake. The wolf stepped forward, ready to defend, but the lion moved faster. He let out a roar so powerful that even the trees seemed to tremble. The bear froze, uncertain, and for a long moment, 3 predators stared at one another, none willing to yield. Then the lion took one step closer, eyes glowing like molten gold. The bear lowered its head and backed away slowly into the shadows. The forest fell silent again. After the bear vanished, the wolf turned to the lion with a small, almost amused look. It was rare to see him express emotion, but that moment felt different. The lion gave a low rumble, as if laughing quietly, and together they walked on under the stars. For weeks, they traveled through the Valley of Echoes, a place where mountains curved around like sleeping giants and sound carried far. Every night, when the lion roared or the wolf howled, the valley answered them. It was as if nature itself was whispering back, "You are not alone." But the echoes also carried far beyond the valley. One morning, 2 humans heard them, forest rangers searching for signs of wild animals to protect. They followed the sounds through the trees until they saw something they could not believe: a white wolf walking beside a black lion. At first, they thought it was a trick of the light. Then the lion looked up, and his eyes met theirs. The men froze, their rifles forgotten. The wolf stepped slightly in front of the lion, protective, calm, but alert. The rangers didn't raise their weapons. Instead, one of them slowly lowered his head in respect, whispering, "Incredible." They didn't follow. They simply watched as the 2 creatures disappeared into the mist. Days later, the rangers returned to their camp and shared the story. Soon, it spread across nearby villages. People began to whisper about the wolf of snow and the lion of night, who walked together like brothers. But not all who heard the story wanted to protect them. Among the people who once captured the lion, a wealthy hunter heard of their survival. He wanted his prize back, and this time he was not coming with cages. He was coming with guns. As the lion and the wolf rested near a stream that evening, the air suddenly changed. Birds flew away, deer scattered, and silence swallowed the forest. The wolf's ears twitched. Danger was near again. The lion stood up, muscles tensed, eyes scanning the shadows. From the ridge above, the hunters appeared, wearing dark clothes and carrying rifles. They moved quickly, surrounding the grove. The leader smirked when he saw the lion. "There you are, my king," he whispered. The wolf growled softly. The first shot echoed. The bullet struck the ground near the lion, throwing dirt into the air. He roared, the sound shaking leaves off trees. The wolf leapt forward, darting between shadows, confusing the men with speed. One hunter slipped on wet rocks, his gun falling into the stream. Another tried to aim, but the lion's roar broke his focus. Chaos spread through the group. Then, from the distance, came a loud horn. It wasn't from the hunters. It was the sound of the rangers. They had heard the shots. They were coming fast. Realizing they were outnumbered, the hunters fled into the forest, vanishing as quickly as they came. The lion stood still, panting heavily, blood dripping from a small wound on his shoulder. The wolf ran to his side and pressed his nose against it gently, checking if he would survive. The lion's eyes softened. The rangers arrived moments later. They didn't approach. Instead, they stopped several meters away, lowering their weapons. One of them spoke quietly. "We will not harm you," he said. "Go where you belong. This forest is yours now." The lion looked at the man, then at the wolf. He understood. The forest was home. Maybe not the one they were born in, but the one they had earned. As the rangers watched, the lion and the wolf disappeared once again into the mist of the valley. The echoes of their footsteps faded slowly, replaced by the soft song of the river. The world seemed to breathe easier that night. Two kings had survived again, not through strength alone, but through loyalty, trust, and something far greater. As they lay under the stars later, the lion turned his gaze toward the wolf. "You saved me," the lion seemed to say through his soft growl. The wolf closed his eyes, tired but peaceful. "We saved each other," his silence answered. And above them, the Valley of Echoes whispered their story back to the mountains.